What becomes truly fascinating is that the more closely we examine awareness itself, the more difficult it becomes to define where it actually begins and where it ends. Most of us assume awareness is simply the product of thoughts moving through the brain. We imagine consciousness as something locked inside the skull, generated by electrical activity and chemical reactions. Yet when we look deeper, both ancient observations and modern discoveries suggest a far more mysterious possibility. I often invite people to consider a simple question. Before a thought appears, what is there? Before a memory arises, before an emotion takes shape, before the mind begins naming and labeling experience, what exists in that space? Most people immediately search for an answer. But the act of searching is itself another thought. The deeper question points toward something that exists prior to thought itself. It points toward awareness, the silent field within which every experience appears. This distinction may seem subtle, yet it changes everything. Thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall, beliefs evolve over time. The body changes continuously, yet there is a part of our experience that remains constant. There is a witnessing presence that observes every stage of our lives. It was present during childhood. It remains present today. It notices every sensation, every memory, every success, and every challenge. The mystery is that this witnessing presence does not seem to age in the same way the body ages. Modern neuroscience continues to explore this puzzle. Researchers can identify networks associated with attention, memory, decision-making, and self-reflection. They can observe regions of the brain becoming active during specific mental processes. Yet identifying neural activity is not the same as explaining awareness itself. Imagine looking at a computer screen. You can study the pixels, examine the circuits, and analyze the flow of electricity. But none of those observations fully explain the experience of seeing an image. The mechanism is visible. The experience remains something different. In much the same way, science can increasingly describe the processes associated with consciousness, yet the subjective experience of being aware remains one of the greatest mysteries ever encountered. What makes this even more intriguing is the growing recognition that our internal states influence our physical biology in measurable ways. For decades, many people viewed the mind and body as separate systems. Thoughts happened in one place, physical processes happened somewhere else. Today, evidence increasingly reveals a continuous conversation occurring between them. Every emotional experience produces biological responses. A feeling of fear creates one pattern. A feeling of safety creates another. Gratitude, appreciation, connection, stress, anticipation, and anxiety all leave measurable signatures throughout the body. The body is constantly listening to the language of our emotional world. This realization carries profound implications because it suggests that awareness is not merely observing reality. Awareness participates in shaping our experience of reality. Consider what happens when we hold a belief for an extended period of time. Eventually, that belief influences perception. Perception influences behavior. Behavior influences outcomes. Over time, those outcomes reinforce the original belief. What began as an internal assumption gradually becomes an external experience. This process often occurs without conscious recognition. Someone who believes they are powerless may unconsciously avoid opportunities. Someone who believes growth is possible may recognize possibilities that others overlook. The external circumstances may appear different, yet awareness itself is influencing what becomes visible. Ancient traditions understood this principle long before modern psychology developed language to describe it. They recognized that the quality of attention affects the quality of experience. Where attention goes, energy follows. Modern studies examining attention and neuroplasticity reveal similar insights. The brain continuously reorganizes itself in response to repeated experiences and patterns of focus. Neural pathways strengthen through repetition. Habits become easier. Perspectives become familiar. Reactions become automatic. In other words, awareness literally helps shape the architecture through which future experiences are interpreted. This does not mean we can simply think our way into any reality we desire. Reality is far more complex than that, yet it does suggest that the internal world plays a far greater role than many people realize. The thoughts we repeatedly entertain, the emotions we frequently rehearse, and the beliefs we continuously reinforce become part of the environment within which our biology operates. This is why emotional states matter so deeply. Many people spend years attempting to change their circumstances while overlooking the emotional patterns through which those circumstances are experienced, yet awareness allows us to interrupt that cycle. The moment we observe a thought, rather than automatically identify with it, something remarkable occurs. A gap appears. Within that gap, possibility emerges. Instead of reacting automatically, we gain the ability to choose. Instead of repeating old patterns, we gain the opportunity to create new ones. Instead of being controlled by unconscious habits, we begin participating consciously in our own development. This may be one of the greatest gifts of human awareness. We are capable of observing ourselves. We can notice our fears without becoming them. We can experience emotions without being defined by them. We can examine beliefs without assuming they are permanent truths. Awareness creates freedom because awareness creates perspective. When we step back from automatic reactions, we begin recognizing that many of the limitations we once considered absolute may simply be conditioned patterns of perception. And this is where the mystery deepens even further. If awareness can observe thoughts, then awareness is not identical to thought. If awareness can observe emotions, then awareness is not identical to emotion. If awareness can observe beliefs, then awareness exists independently of belief. So what exactly is this observing presence? Is it an emergent property of biological complexity? Is it a fundamental aspect of nature itself? Is it something that science has only begun to understand? These questions remain open. Yet perhaps the most important insight is not found in answering them intellectually. Perhaps it emerges through direct experience. Because the moment we become still enough to notice awareness itself, we encounter something extraordinary. We discover that beneath the constant activity of the mind, beneath the endless stream of narratives and interpretations, there exists a deeper level of experience that has been present all along. And when we begin living from that deeper level of awareness, our relationship with thought, emotion, belief, biology, and even our understanding of human potential starts to transform in ways that most people never expect, revealing possibilities that remain largely hidden until I begin to notice that these hidden possibilities rarely announce themselves with dramatic revelations. More often, they emerge quietly through subtle shifts in perception. A situation that once triggered frustration suddenly becomes an opportunity for understanding. A challenge that once felt overwhelming begins to reveal lessons that were invisible before. The external circumstances may appear unchanged, yet something fundamental has shifted within the observer. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of human awareness. Many people spend years attempting to control the world around them while giving very little attention to the lens through which they are viewing that world. Yet every experience is filtered through perception. Two individuals can encounter the same event and walk away with completely different interpretations. The event may be identical, but the meaning assigned to it can vary dramatically. What determines that meaning? Part of the answer lies in our accumulated beliefs, memories, expectations, and emotional conditioning. Throughout life, we build internal models of reality. These models help us navigate the world efficiently, but they can also limit what we perceive. Imagine wearing tinted glasses for so long that you forget they are there. Eventually, the color of the lenses begins to seem like reality itself. In a similar way, many of our assumptions become invisible precisely because they are so familiar. Awareness allows us to recognize the glasses. The moment we become conscious of the filter, we gain the ability to question it. This is why self-observation is such a powerful practice, not because it immediately solves every problem, but because it reveals the hidden patterns shaping our experience. The act of noticing transforms us from unconscious participants into conscious observers. And observation itself has remarkable effects. Modern research increasingly suggests that attention influences how the brain processes information. What we focus on becomes amplified. What we repeatedly notice becomes easier to notice again. Over time, attention functions like a spotlight, illuminating certain aspects of reality while leaving others in shadow. This means that awareness is not passive. It is active. Every moment, we are directing attention somewhere. Sometimes consciously, often unconsciously, we focus on problems, opportunities, fears, possibilities, limitations, or growth. Wherever attention repeatedly flows, corresponding mental and emotional pathways become stronger. The implications are profound. If awareness shapes attention, and attention influences experience, then developing awareness may be one of the most practical skills available to us. Consider how often the mind becomes trapped in repetitive loops. A single worry generates another worry. An uncomfortable memory triggers additional memories. A fear about the future creates scenarios that have not even occurred. The body responds as though these imagined situations are real. Heart rate changes, stress hormones increase, muscles tighten, breathing patterns shift. From a biological perspective, the distinction between an actual threat and an intensely imagined one is not always as clear as we might assume. This helps explain why chronic emotional patterns can have such significant effects over time. The body continuously adapts to the signals it receives. If those signals repeatedly communicate stress, uncertainty, or danger, biological systems adjust accordingly. But the reverse is also true. When awareness allows us to cultivate states such as appreciation, connection, curiosity, or inner stability, different biological responses emerge. The body receives a different message. Physiological systems begin operating from a different baseline. This is where the relationship between emotion and biology becomes especially fascinating. Emotions are not merely feelings floating through the mind, they are whole body experiences. Every emotional state involves chemical messengers, neural activity, physiological changes, and behavioral tendencies working together. In many ways, emotions serve as bridges between consciousness and biology. They translate internal experiences into physical responses. Ancient observers recognized this connection long before scientific instruments existed to measure it. They understood that inner harmony and outer well-being were deeply interconnected. Today, modern research continues to uncover mechanisms that help explain why those observations may have contained important insights. Yet, awareness extends beyond emotional regulation alone. It also influences creativity. Some of humanity's greatest breakthroughs have emerged not during intense effort, but during moments of openness. A scientist steps away from a problem and suddenly sees a solution. An artist receives inspiration while walking quietly through nature. An inventor experiences clarity after releasing mental struggle. Why does this happen? One possibility is that awareness functions differently when the mind becomes less crowded. When constant mental noise subsides, new connections become visible. Ideas that seemed unrelated suddenly reveal patterns. Perspectives that once appeared contradictory begin fitting together. Information stored in different regions of memory integrates into something entirely new. This suggests that awareness is not simply about acquiring more information. It is also about creating space. In a culture that often values constant activity, this insight can seem counterintuitive. We are frequently encouraged to do more, think more, achieve more, consume more information, and move faster. Yet awareness often deepens through the opposite process: stillness. Not the absence of activity, but the presence of clarity. A clear lake reflects the sky more accurately than turbulent water. Likewise, a calm mind often perceives reality more accurately than a mind overwhelmed by constant distraction. This does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging with life more consciously. It means recognizing that awareness itself is a resource. The more we develop it, the more clearly we see ourselves and the world around us. And perhaps this points toward an even deeper mystery. What if awareness is not merely something we possess? What if it is the very foundation of every experience we have ever known? Everything we perceive, every thought, sensation, memory, emotion, and observation appears within awareness. Without awareness, none of these experiences could be recognized. This realization shifts the entire conversation. Instead of asking how awareness fits into experience, we begin asking how experience emerges within awareness. That subtle reversal opens a completely different perspective. Suddenly, consciousness is no longer a small byproduct of human existence. It becomes the stage upon which existence is experienced. And as researchers continue exploring the nature of consciousness, and as individuals continue examining their own direct experience, a remarkable possibility begins to emerge. The answers we seek may not be found solely through external investigation, nor solely through internal reflection, but through the meeting point where observation, biology, perception, and awareness converge into a single living experience. At that intersection, the boundary between observer and observed begins to feel less certain, and the mystery that has fascinated humanity for generations starts revealing an entirely new layer of understanding that challenges some of our most basic assumptions about who we are, what awareness truly is, and whether the conscious mind is only the beginning of a much larger reality still waiting to be explored. And as that larger reality begins to come into view, we encounter a question that is both deeply personal and universally human. How much of what we experience is actually reality itself? And how much is our interpretation of reality? At first glance, the distinction may seem insignificant. After all, experience feels real. The emotions we feel are real. The thoughts we think are real. The challenges we face are real. Yet awareness reveals something subtle. Between an event and our response to that event exists a process of interpretation. In an instant, often without conscious recognition, the mind assigns meaning. It compares the present moment to past experiences. It predicts possible outcomes. It categorizes situations as safe or threatening, desirable or undesirable, familiar or unfamiliar. Most of this occurs automatically. The extraordinary part is that we usually notice the conclusion without noticing the process that created it. This is why awareness can be so transformative. When we become conscious of the process itself, we begin recognizing that many experiences are shaped not only by circumstances, but also by the meanings we attach to them. Consider two people standing in the rain. One sees inconvenience. Another sees beauty. The weather is identical. The experience is not. What changed was interpretation. This simple example points toward a profound principle. Human beings do not merely experience reality. We participate in creating our experience of reality through perception. That participation is occurring every moment. The words we use internally matter. The stories we tell ourselves matter. The expectations we carry matter. Over time, these invisible processes become the framework through which life is understood. The fascinating part is that awareness gives us access to this framework. Without awareness, the framework remains hidden. With awareness, it becomes visible. And once something becomes visible, it can evolve. This is where personal transformation often begins, not through dramatic external change, but through a shift in how experience is perceived. Many people spend years searching for certainty. They want definitive answers about who they are, why they are here, and what the future holds. Yet awareness often moves in the opposite direction. Rather than providing rigid certainty, it expands our capacity to remain present with uncertainty. This may sound paradoxical. We typically assume that growth comes from accumulating answers. Yet some of the most profound insights emerge when we become comfortable with questions. A scientist exploring the unknown does not begin with certainty. An explorer entering new territory does not possess a complete map. Likewise, awareness invites us into a relationship with mystery, rather than immediate conclusion. The more honestly we observe ourselves, the more we discover that consciousness contains depths we have barely begun to understand. For example, where do original ideas come from? We can trace influences and experiences. We can identify sources of inspiration. Yet there are moments when entirely new insights seem to emerge from somewhere beyond deliberate thinking. A solution appears unexpectedly. A creative breakthrough arrives suddenly. A realization forms without conscious effort. Many people have experienced this phenomenon. The question is why? Some researchers suggest that the brain continues processing information beneath conscious awareness. Others propose that creativity emerges from complex interactions between different cognitive networks. These explanations may describe part of the process. Yet the lived experience remains remarkable. It often feels as though awareness is receiving something rather than constructing it. This observation has inspired thinkers across generations to wonder whether consciousness is more expansive than ordinary thinking suggests. Not because awareness is magical, but because it consistently demonstrates properties that challenge simple explanations. The deeper we investigate, the more layers appear. Even memory reveals unexpected complexity. Most people assume memories function like recordings stored in a library. Yet memory is far more dynamic. Every recollection involves reconstruction. The act of remembering is not merely retrieving information, it is actively recreating experience. This means that our relationship with the past is influenced by present awareness. As awareness changes, our understanding of previous experiences often changes as well. Events that once seemed purely painful may reveal hidden lessons. Failures may become turning points. Challenges may become catalysts for growth. The past itself remains unchanged, yet the meaning we derive from it evolves. This illustrates something essential about consciousness. Awareness is not static. It develops, it expands, it learns, and perhaps most importantly, it integrates. Throughout life, we accumulate countless experiences. Some are joyful, some are difficult, some are confusing, some appear insignificant at the time. Yet awareness possesses an extraordinary ability to weave these experiences into a larger understanding. A conversation from years ago suddenly becomes relevant. A challenge reveals its purpose only in hindsight. A seemingly random encounter influences an entire life path. Patterns emerge that were invisible while events were unfolding. This ability to recognize patterns may be one of the defining characteristics of human consciousness. We are meaning-making beings. We search for connections. We seek coherence. We attempt to understand how individual experiences fit into larger narratives. And while this tendency can sometimes lead to mistaken assumptions, it also fuels discovery, innovation, and personal growth. Without it, civilization itself would look very different. Yet there is another dimension of awareness that deserves attention: presence. In a world increasingly filled with distractions, presence has become surprisingly rare. Many people spend significant portions of their lives mentally revisiting the past or anticipating the future. The mind drifts continuously between memory and expectation. Meanwhile, the present moment receives only partial attention. Awareness changes this dynamic. When we become fully present, even ordinary experiences begin revealing extraordinary detail. A conversation becomes richer. A walk becomes more vivid. A simple breath becomes noticeable. Life itself feels different, not because reality has changed, but because awareness has become more complete. This may explain why so many transformative experiences share a common quality of heightened presence. During moments of awe, deep connection, creativity, or profound insight, attention becomes fully engaged. The mind is no longer fragmented. Awareness and experience become aligned. And in those moments, many people report feeling connected to something larger than their usual sense of self. Not a belief, not a theory, a direct experience. An experience that suggests human awareness may be far more expansive than our everyday assumptions allow. As we continue exploring consciousness from both scientific and experiential perspectives, one possibility becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. What we call awareness may not simply be another function of the mind. It may be the context within which the mind operates. And if that possibility proves true, then many of the questions we have been asking for centuries may need to be approached from an entirely new direction, leading us toward discoveries that could fundamentally reshape how we understand perception, identity, potential, and the hidden capacities that have quietly existed within human consciousness all along, waiting for us to notice them. And the moment we begin noticing those hidden capacities, another intriguing realization emerges. Much of what shapes our lives operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness. Every day, countless processes unfold automatically. The heart beats without instruction. The immune system responds to challenges without conscious direction. Memories influence decisions before we even recognize their presence. Patterns learned years ago continue affecting behavior long after we have forgotten when they were formed. In many ways, the conscious mind is only a small part of a much larger system. This does not diminish the importance of conscious thought. Rather, it expands our appreciation for the complexity of human experience. Imagine standing on the shore of a vast ocean. The waves visible on the surface represent conscious awareness, the thoughts, decisions, and observations we recognize from moment to moment. Beneath the surface, however, exists an immense depth filled with currents, ecosystems, and forces that influence everything happening above. Human consciousness may operate in a similar way. The thoughts we notice are only part of the story. Beneath them lies a vast landscape of associations, memories, emotional patterns, instincts, and learned responses. These hidden influences quietly shape perception, often without our awareness. This is why self-discovery can be such a surprising process. Many people assume they know themselves completely, yet genuine observation often reveals habits they never noticed, assumptions they never questioned, and motivations they never fully understood. Awareness shines light into these unseen areas. And once illuminated, they become available for examination. This process requires courage because not everything we discover is comfortable. Sometimes awareness reveals contradictions. We may value patience, yet react impulsively. We may desire change, yet resist it. We may seek freedom, while unconsciously repeating familiar limitations. These discoveries can feel unsettling at first. Yet they are also opportunities. The purpose of awareness is not self-judgment. The purpose is understanding. When we observe ourselves honestly, we gain access to information that was previously hidden. That information becomes the foundation for meaningful growth. Without awareness, patterns repeat automatically. With awareness, patterns become choices. This distinction is crucial. Much of human behavior is driven by repetition. The brain naturally conserves energy by creating routines and shortcuts. Once a pattern becomes familiar, it often continues without requiring significant conscious effort. This mechanism is useful. It allows us to perform complex activities efficiently. We do not need to relearn how to walk every morning or consciously calculate every movement involved in speaking. Yet the same efficiency that supports daily functioning can also preserve limitations. An old fear may become habitual. A limiting belief may become automatic. A negative expectation may become so familiar that it feels like reality itself. Awareness interrupts this cycle. It creates a pause between stimulus and response. Within that pause lies the possibility of transformation. The fascinating thing is that even small moments of awareness can produce significant long-term effects. A single observation may lead to a new question. A new question may inspire a different perspective. That perspective may influence future decisions. Those decisions may gradually alter the direction of an entire life. Major changes often begin with subtle shifts. This principle appears throughout nature. Massive trees emerge from tiny seeds. Powerful rivers begin as small streams. Great discoveries frequently originate from simple observations. Human awareness follows a similar pattern. Small moments of insight can generate consequences far beyond their initial appearance. This is one reason reflection has been valued across cultures and throughout history. Reflection creates space for awareness to deepen. When we pause long enough to observe our experiences rather than merely react to them, hidden patterns become visible. Connections emerge. Lessons crystallize. Understanding grows. The speed of modern life can make this difficult. Information arrives continuously. Notifications compete for attention. Endless streams of content pull awareness in multiple directions. As a result, many people spend more time consuming information than processing it. Yet information alone does not create wisdom. A person can accumulate enormous amounts of knowledge and still lack understanding. Wisdom develops when awareness integrates knowledge with experience. It emerges through observation, reflection, and application. This distinction may become increasingly important in the years ahead. Humanity has access to more information than at any previous point in history. Yet information abundance does not automatically produce clarity. In some cases, it creates confusion. Awareness serves as a filter. It helps us distinguish between what is merely distracting and what is genuinely meaningful. It allows us to move beyond reaction and toward intentional understanding. And perhaps nowhere is this more important than in our relationship with identity. Most people carry a mental image of who they are. They define themselves through achievements, roles, memories, beliefs, strengths, weaknesses, and life experiences. These descriptions are useful. They help organize experience. Yet awareness reveals something interesting. Every description of ourselves is an object of observation. We can observe our memories. We can observe our beliefs. We can observe our emotions. We can even observe our self-image. If these aspects can be observed, then awareness itself appears to exist at a deeper level. This realization has fascinated philosophers, scientists, and contemplative thinkers for generations. Who is the observer? Who notices the thought? Who recognizes the emotion? Who witnesses the changing story of a lifetime? The more deeply we investigate, the more elusive the answer becomes, and yet the experience of awareness remains undeniable. It is present in every moment of life. It has accompanied us through every success and failure, every challenge and triumph, every period of certainty and uncertainty. It has been there through all of it. Perhaps this is why awareness often feels both familiar and mysterious at the same time. It is the closest thing we know, yet it remains one of the least understood. We live within it constantly, yet rarely examine it directly. And when we finally do, we begin encountering questions that extend beyond psychology, beyond biology, and even beyond conventional ideas about consciousness itself. Questions about the nature of experience, questions about perception, questions about the relationship between mind and reality, questions that suggest the mystery of awareness is not a problem waiting to be solved, but a doorway leading toward ever deeper levels of understanding. Because every answer seems to reveal new questions, every discovery uncovers new mysteries, and every expansion of awareness exposes possibilities that were previously invisible, inviting us to continue exploring the extraordinary depths of human consciousness and the remarkable potential hidden within the simple act of being aware. And perhaps that is where the journey becomes truly extraordinary. Not when we arrive at a final answer, but when we realize that awareness itself is an unfolding process, one that continues revealing new dimensions no matter how deeply we explore. For most of our lives, we tend to think of consciousness as a fixed feature. We assume that we perceive reality as it is, that our understanding is relatively complete, and that the boundaries of our awareness are largely established. Yet experience repeatedly suggests otherwise. Think about how different the world appeared when you were a child. Certain things seemed enormous. Time felt slower. Simple experiences carried a sense of wonder that often fades as routines take over. The world itself did not fundamentally change. What changed was awareness. As awareness evolved, reality appeared differently. This observation points toward an important insight. Consciousness is not merely something we possess. It is something that develops. Just as the body grows through experience, awareness appears to mature through observation, reflection, challenge, and understanding. In many cases, life's most difficult moments become powerful catalysts for that growth. Challenges have a unique way of exposing assumptions. When everything proceeds according to expectation, we rarely question the mental frameworks guiding our lives, but when uncertainty arrives, those frameworks become visible. Situations we cannot control force us to confront how we think, how we feel, and how we respond. This is often uncomfortable, yet discomfort frequently precedes transformation. A muscle grows stronger when challenged beyond its normal capacity. In a similar way, awareness often expands when it encounters experiences that cannot be understood through old perspectives. What once seemed impossible becomes possible. What once seemed certain becomes questionable. What once seemed insignificant becomes meaningful. Growth frequently begins at the edge of the familiar. This may explain why periods of profound change often lead to deeper self-understanding. They require us to pay attention. They interrupt automatic patterns. They invite us to see ourselves in the world with fresh eyes. And when awareness becomes more attentive, remarkable things begin to happen. We start noticing connections that were previously invisible. A recurring emotional pattern suddenly reveals its origin. A long-held belief reveals its influence. A seemingly random event fits into a much larger pattern. Life begins to feel less fragmented and more interconnected. This does not mean that everything happens for a predetermined reason. Rather, it means awareness becomes increasingly skilled at recognizing relationships between experiences. The more conscious we become, the more coherent our understanding often becomes. Interestingly, modern science continues uncovering evidence that the human brain is exceptionally designed to detect patterns. This ability has helped our species survive, innovate, and adapt. Yet awareness takes pattern recognition a step further. It allows us to observe not only external patterns, but internal ones as well. We can notice how certain thoughts lead to specific emotions. We can observe how emotional states influence behavior. We can recognize how repeated behaviors gradually shape identity. These observations reveal something important. Human experience is not composed of isolated events. It is a dynamic network of interactions. Thought influences emotion. Emotion influences physiology. Physiology influences perception. Perception influences behavior. Behavior influences future experience. Each element affects the others in an ongoing cycle. Awareness gives us access to that cycle. Without awareness, we are largely carried along by its momentum. With awareness, we can participate more consciously in its direction. This participation may represent one of humanity's most extraordinary capacities. Unlike many processes in nature that operate entirely through instinct, human beings possess the ability to reflect upon their own experience. We can examine our motivations, we can question our assumptions, we can intentionally reshape aspects of our behavior. In essence, awareness allows evolution to become conscious of itself. For a moment, consider how remarkable that truly is. The universe has produced beings capable of observing their own thoughts. It has produced minds capable of examining the very process of perception. It has produced awareness capable of investigating awareness. This recursive quality is unlike anything else we commonly encounter, and it raises fascinating questions. Why does consciousness possess this ability? What purpose does self-awareness serve? Why do human beings feel compelled to seek meaning, understanding, and truth? These questions have inspired inquiry for centuries, and they remain as compelling today as ever. One possibility is that awareness naturally seeks expansion. Just as a seed contains the potential to become a tree, consciousness may contain an inherent tendency toward greater understanding. We see evidence of this throughout human history. People explore, they learn, they create, they investigate, they push beyond existing boundaries. Curiosity seems woven into the fabric of human experience, and curiosity is deeply connected to awareness. The moment we become genuinely curious, perception changes. Instead of assuming we already know, we begin observing more carefully. Instead of defending conclusions, we become open to discovery. Instead of narrowing our perspective, we expand it. Curiosity transforms awareness from a static state into a living process of exploration. Perhaps this is why some of the most profound experiences in life involve a sense of wonder. Wonder temporarily suspends certainty. It allows us to encounter reality without immediately reducing it to familiar categories. A breathtaking landscape, a profound conversation, a scientific discovery, a moment of deep insight. In such moments, awareness feels larger, more open, more alive. We sense that reality contains greater depth than our ordinary assumptions suggest. And maybe that intuition is pointing towards something important. Perhaps consciousness is not simply a tool for navigating the world. Perhaps it is also a means of continuously discovering it. Every layer of understanding reveals another layer beyond it. Every answer opens the door to new questions. Every expansion of awareness reveals possibilities that were previously unimaginable. The mystery, then, is not something that disappears through investigation. In many ways, it deepens. The more we learn about perception, the more extraordinary perception becomes. The more we understand the brain, the more remarkable consciousness appears. The more we study awareness, the more profound the experience of being aware seems to be. And as this exploration continues, we may eventually discover that the greatest mystery was never hidden somewhere far away. It was present in every moment. It was present in every thought, every feeling, every observation, and every experience we have ever known, quietly waiting beneath the surface of ordinary life, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be explored, waiting to reveal that the simple fact of awareness may contain depths far beyond anything we have yet imagined, opening the possibility that human consciousness is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a much larger journey into the nature of reality itself. A journey that becomes more fascinating the closer we look, and more mysterious the more clearly we begin to see. And as we begin to see more clearly, another subtle truth emerges. Awareness does not merely reveal reality, it transforms the relationship we have with it. This distinction is easy to overlook. Most people assume that perception functions like a camera, passively recording what exists. Yet human awareness behaves more like an active participant than a passive observer. Every experience is influenced by attention, interpretation, memory, expectation, and meaning. The world we experience is not simply the world outside of us. It is also the world inside of us. This inner dimension influences everything. Two individuals can encounter the same opportunity, yet one sees possibility while the other sees risk. Two people can receive identical feedback, yet one experiences encouragement while the other experiences criticism. The external event remains unchanged, but awareness shapes the experience. This realization invites a powerful question. If awareness influences experience so deeply, then how often are we seeing reality clearly? And how often are we seeing reflections of our own conditioning? The answer may be more complex than we imagine. From the earliest stages of life, the brain begins constructing models of the world. These models help us navigate reality efficiently. They allow us to recognize patterns, predict outcomes, and make decisions without analyzing every detail from scratch. Without these mental shortcuts, daily life would become overwhelming. Yet every shortcut comes with a limitation. The more familiar a pattern becomes, the less likely we are to question it. Over time, assumptions begin to masquerade as facts. Expectations begin to feel like reality. Interpretations begin to seem objective. Awareness disrupts this illusion. It reminds us that what we perceive is often filtered through layers of prior experience. This is not a flaw in human consciousness. It is simply part of how perception works. The challenge is that many of these filters operate automatically. We may believe we are responding to the present moment when, in reality, we are reacting to memories associated with similar moments from the past. We may think we are seeing people clearly while unconsciously projecting expectations onto them. We may assume our emotional reactions are caused entirely by external circumstances when internal patterns are playing a significant role. The deeper awareness becomes, the more visible these processes become. And visibility creates freedom. When unconscious patterns remain hidden, they guide behavior automatically. When they become visible, they become choices. This principle applies not only to individuals, but also to entire societies. Collective beliefs shape collective behavior. Shared assumptions influence cultures. Common narratives guide decision-making on a large scale. Throughout history, many ideas that once seemed unquestionably true were eventually re-examined and transformed. This process continues today. Human understanding evolves because awareness evolves. Every major breakthrough begins when someone becomes willing to question an assumption that others accept without examination. In this sense, awareness is not merely personal. It is also a force for collective growth. The expansion of human knowledge depends upon the expansion of human perception, and perception expands when curiosity becomes stronger than certainty. That may sound simple, yet it represents one of the most difficult challenges we face. Certainty feels comfortable. It creates stability. It provides a sense of control. Curiosity, on the other hand, requires openness. It requires the willingness to admit that there may be more to learn. Awareness thrives in that openness. The moment we stop assuming we already know everything, new possibilities become visible. This is true in science. It is true in relationships. It is true in personal growth. And it may be especially true in our exploration of consciousness itself. For generations, researchers have attempted to understand how awareness arises. They have examined neurons, brain networks, electrical activity, and cognitive processes. These investigations have produced extraordinary insights. Yet, despite remarkable progress, the central mystery remains. Why does subjective experience exist at all? Why does neural activity produce the experience of seeing colors, feeling emotions, hearing music, or reflecting on existence? A complete explanation remains elusive. This is not a failure of science. It is a reflection of the depth of the question. Consciousness is unique because it is both the object of investigation and the tool used to investigate. We are using awareness to study awareness. That creates a fascinating situation. The observer and the observed become deeply intertwined. Perhaps this is one reason why the mystery persists. Every attempt to explain consciousness takes place within consciousness itself. And yet, even if complete answers remain distant, the exploration continues to reveal valuable insights. One of the most important may be the recognition that awareness can be cultivated. Just as physical fitness develops through training, awareness develops through practice. The more we observe our thoughts, the more clearly we recognize mental patterns. The more we pay attention to emotions, the more skillfully we understand their influence. The more present we become, the richer experience often feels. Awareness strengthens through use. This has practical implications for everyday life. A person who develops awareness may become less reactive during conflict. They may recognize emotional triggers before being overwhelmed by them. They may notice opportunities that others overlook. They may become more resilient in the face of uncertainty. These changes are not necessarily dramatic. Often they appear gradually, yet over time their effects can be profound. Small increases in awareness can lead to significant changes in perception. Changes in perception can alter behavior. Behavior can influence outcomes. And outcomes can reshape entire life trajectories. What begins as a subtle shift in consciousness may eventually transform the way a person experiences the world. This transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more fully aware of who we already are. Beneath habits, beneath conditioning, beneath stories accumulated over years, awareness remains present, quiet, observant, unchanging in a way that thoughts and emotions are not. The more deeply we connect with that dimension of experience, the more stable our relationship with life often becomes. External circumstances continue to change. Challenges still arise. Uncertainty remains part of existence. Yet awareness provides a different center from which to engage with those experiences, a center rooted not in constant reaction, but in observation, not in fear, but in understanding, not in rigid certainty, but in curiosity. And as this deeper relationship with awareness develops, we begin approaching one of the most profound questions imaginable, a question that stands at the intersection of science, philosophy, experience, and human potential. A question that asks whether consciousness is merely something happening inside the universe, or whether consciousness itself may play a more fundamental role in the unfolding of reality than we have ever dared to consider, a possibility that becomes increasingly intriguing the further we explore the extraordinary mystery of being aware, and the deeper we venture into the hidden landscape of the human mind. And it is within that hidden landscape that some of the most fascinating discoveries begin to unfold. The deeper we investigate consciousness, the more we encounter a remarkable paradox. Awareness feels deeply personal, yet many of its qualities appear universal. Every human being experiences life through a unique perspective. We each carry different memories, different beliefs, different experiences, and different interpretations of the world. No two life stories are identical. Yet beneath those differences, certain aspects of awareness seem strikingly similar. We all recognize joy. We all understand fear. We all experience curiosity. We all know what it feels like to wonder, to hope, to imagine, and to question. The specific forms may differ, but the underlying capacity is shared. This observation raises an important question. If the content of consciousness changes constantly, what is it that remains consistent enough for all human beings to recognize these experiences? The answer may point us back to awareness itself. Consider a movie screen. Hundreds of different scenes may appear upon it. Action, drama, joy, sadness, triumph, and loss may all unfold across its surface. Yet regardless of what appears, the screen remains unchanged. In a similar way, thoughts, emotions, memories, and perceptions continuously arise within awareness. The content changes from moment to moment, but awareness itself remains the space in which those experiences occur. This distinction becomes increasingly important as we examine the nature of identity. Most people spend much of their lives identifying with the content of consciousness. They identify with thoughts. They identify with emotions. They identify with personal history. They identify with achievements and failures. These identifications are understandable. They help create continuity and meaning. Yet awareness reveals that these experiences are constantly changing. The thoughts you had 10 years ago are not the thoughts you have today. The emotions you felt in childhood are not the emotions you feel now. The beliefs that once seemed unquestionable may have evolved completely, and still, there is a sense of continuity. There is a feeling that the observer remains present throughout all of those changes. This continuity may represent one of the most direct clues available in the study of consciousness. Something remains aware through every transformation. Something witnesses the changing story of a lifetime. And while we may describe that witnessing presence using different concepts, its existence is part of direct experience. This is where awareness begins to challenge many of our ordinary assumptions. We often assume that growth means adding more things to ourselves, more knowledge, more skills, more achievements, more experiences. Yet some forms of growth involve subtraction rather than addition. They involve removing distortions, removing assumptions, removing unnecessary complexity. As these layers fall away, awareness often becomes clearer. Think of a window covered with dust. The sunlight has always been present outside. The problem is not the absence of light. The problem is that the window obscures it. Cleaning the window does not create sunlight. It reveals what was already there. In much the same way, awareness may not always require acquiring something new. Sometimes it requires removing the distractions that prevent us from recognizing what has been present all along. This realization has profound implications for how we approach personal development. Many people search endlessly for the next technique, the next strategy, or the next source of external validation. Yet awareness suggests that some of the most meaningful discoveries occur through observation rather than acquisition. The answers we seek are not always hidden somewhere outside ourselves. Sometimes they become visible when we learn to observe more carefully. This is one reason silence can feel so powerful. In silence, many of the usual distractions fade. The constant stream of information slows. The mind becomes easier to observe. Patterns that were previously hidden begin to emerge. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Many people are surprised by how active the mind becomes when external distractions disappear. Thoughts appear, memories surface. Unfinished concerns demand attention. Yet if observation continues, something interesting often happens. The observer becomes more noticeable than the thoughts themselves. Awareness begins recognizing its own presence. This shift can be subtle, but it changes everything. Instead of being completely absorbed by mental activity, we begin witnessing it. Instead of becoming every thought, we observe thoughts arising and passing. Instead of being carried away by every emotion, we notice emotions moving through experience. This does not eliminate challenges. It changes our relationship with them, and relationships matter. The way we relate to fear influences how fear affects us. The way we relate to uncertainty influences how uncertainty affects us. The way we relate to change influences how change affects us. Awareness transforms these relationships because it creates perspective. Perspective creates choice. Choice creates possibility. This chain of influence may explain why awareness is so deeply connected to human potential. Potential is not merely about talent or intelligence. Potential is about flexibility. It is about the capacity to respond creatively rather than automatically. It is about recognizing possibilities beyond habitual patterns. The more awareness expands, the more options become visible. What once seemed like a dead end reveals alternative paths. What once seemed impossible becomes conceivable. What once seemed fixed becomes adaptable. Awareness expands possibility because it expands perception, and perception shapes reality in countless ways. Not reality itself, perhaps, but certainly our experience of it. This distinction is important. A mountain remains a mountain regardless of how we perceive it. Yet the experience of standing before that mountain can vary dramatically depending on awareness. One person sees an obstacle, another sees beauty, another sees an opportunity for exploration. The mountain remains unchanged. The experience does not. This simple observation points toward one of the deepest mysteries of consciousness. Human beings do not merely encounter reality, we continually participate in the creation of meaning. Meaning is not automatically present in events. It emerges through awareness. The same circumstance can inspire despair, determination, gratitude, growth, or transformation depending on how it is perceived. This does not mean we can control every outcome. It means awareness plays a powerful role in shaping experience. And perhaps that role is even more significant than we currently understand. As researchers continue exploring consciousness, new questions continue to emerge. Questions about perception, questions about identity, questions about creativity, intuition, and insight. Questions about whether awareness is simply a product of physical processes or whether it represents something more fundamental. For now, definitive answers remain elusive, yet the mystery itself continues to inspire exploration. Because every time we examine awareness closely, we discover something extraordinary. The observer we are searching for is the very presence conducting the search. And that realization opens the door to an entirely new level of inquiry, one that suggests the greatest discoveries about consciousness may not come solely from studying the contents of awareness, but from understanding the nature of awareness itself and the astonishing implications that emerge when we begin investigating the silent presence that has accompanied every moment of our lives from the very beginning. And the more we investigate that silent presence, the more we begin to realize that awareness is unlike anything else we encounter and experience. Everything we normally observe has characteristics. Objects have size, shape, and location. Thoughts have content. Emotions have intensity. Memories have associations. Sensations have qualities that allow us to describe them. Awareness itself seems different. It does not appear to have a shape. It does not occupy a specific location in the same way physical objects do. It cannot be seen as an object because it is the very condition that makes seeing possible. This creates a fascinating challenge. Most forms of knowledge involve observing something from a distance. We study stars through telescopes. We study cells through microscopes. We analyze objects by separating ourselves from them and examining them carefully. But awareness cannot be approached in exactly the same way. The observer and the observed are inseparable. The very act of examining awareness occurs within awareness. This unique characteristic may explain why consciousness remains one of the most profound mysteries facing humanity. It is not merely another subject of study. It is the foundation upon which every subject of study depends. Without awareness, there would be no observation. Without observation, there would be no knowledge. Without knowledge, there would be no science, philosophy, art, or understanding. Everything we know appears within the field of awareness. Yet most of the time, attention is focused on the contents of that field rather than the field itself. Imagine spending your entire life watching images projected onto a screen while never noticing the screen. The stories would capture your attention. The characters would engage your emotions. The events would dominate your focus. Meanwhile, the screen supporting every image would remain largely unnoticed. Awareness may function in a similar way. We become absorbed in thoughts. We become immersed in emotions. We become preoccupied with circumstances. And in the process, we rarely examine the presence within which those experiences occur. When we do begin examining it, An interesting shift takes place. Many concerns that once seemed overwhelming begin appearing from a different perspective. The challenges themselves may remain. The circumstances may remain. Yet the relationship to those experiences changes. Why? Because awareness introduces space. A thought may still arise, but now it is recognized as a thought. An emotion may still appear, but now it is observed as an experience rather than an identity. A difficult situation may still exist, but now it is viewed with greater clarity. Space changes everything. When awareness is absent, experiences can feel absolute. When awareness is present, experiences become observable. Observation creates perspective. Perspective creates freedom. Freedom creates possibility. This progression appears repeatedly throughout human growth. Individuals who develop greater awareness often report feeling less trapped by automatic reactions. They become more capable of responding intentionally rather than impulsively. This is not because awareness removes difficulty. It is because awareness changes how difficulty is experienced. Consider the difference between being caught inside a storm and observing a storm from a place of safety. The storm remains powerful in both cases. The difference lies in perspective. Awareness provides a similar form of perspective within the landscape of the mind. Thoughts continue to come and go. Emotions continue to rise and fall. Life continues presenting uncertainty. Yet awareness creates a stable reference point from which these experiences can be observed. This stability may be one of the most valuable qualities consciousness offers. In a world defined by constant change, awareness remains the one aspect of experience that seems consistently present. Everything else shifts. The body changes, circumstances change, relationships change, beliefs change, goals change. Entire chapters of life appear and disappear. Yet throughout all of these transformations, awareness remains. It witnesses every stage. It observes every transition. It accompanies every experience. The implications of this are profound. If awareness remains present through every change, then perhaps our deepest sense of identity is connected less to what changes and more to what observes change. This possibility has fascinated thinkers for generations, not because it provides easy answers, but because it invites a completely different way of understanding ourselves. Most people define themselves through attributes. They identify with roles, achievements, histories, and characteristics. These aspects are important. They contribute to the story of a life. Yet awareness suggests that the story and the storyteller may not be identical. The story evolves continuously. The storyteller remains. This distinction can transform how we approach personal growth. Instead of trying to force ourselves into a new identity, we begin observing the identities we already carry. Instead of becoming trapped within old narratives, we recognize them as narratives. Instead of being defined by every thought or emotion, we develop the ability to witness them. Awareness creates flexibility, and flexibility is essential for growth. Rigid systems struggle to adapt. Flexible systems evolve. The same principle applies to consciousness. The more awareness develops, the more adaptable perception becomes. New possibilities emerge. Alternative interpretations become visible. Creative solutions appear where none seemed to exist before. This may explain why awareness is so closely connected to innovation. Many breakthroughs occur when someone sees beyond conventional assumptions. They recognize possibilities hidden within familiar circumstances. They question limitations that others accept without examination. In doing so, they expand what becomes possible. The process begins with perception, and perception begins with awareness. Every advancement in human understanding has depended upon someone noticing something differently. A scientist observes an anomaly. An artist perceives a new perspective. An inventor imagines a different solution. A thinker questions an accepted belief. Awareness opens the door. Discovery walks through it. This relationship between awareness and possibility may be one of the most important clues in understanding human potential. The capacity for transformation appears closely linked to the capacity for observation. The more clearly we see, the more effectively we can respond. The more accurately we understand, the more intelligently we can act. The more consciously we participate in experience, the more opportunities become visible. And perhaps this points toward a larger truth. Maybe consciousness is not merely a mechanism for experiencing reality. Maybe it is also a mechanism for expanding reality as it is experienced. Every increase in awareness expands the range of possibilities available to us. Every new perspective broadens the horizon of understanding. Every moment of genuine observation deepens our connection to the mystery we are exploring. Because the closer we look at awareness, the more extraordinary it becomes. Not less mysterious, more mysterious. Every layer we uncover reveals another beneath it. Every answer leads to deeper questions. Every insight opens new territory for exploration. And as this journey continues, we may discover that consciousness is far more than a phenomenon to be explained. It may be an invitation into an ongoing process of discovery, a process that continuously reveals new dimensions of human experience and suggests that the ultimate mystery is not hidden somewhere beyond us, but exists within the very awareness through which we seek to understand everything else. And if that ultimate mystery exists within awareness itself, then one of the most important questions we can ask is not what consciousness does, but what consciousness reveals when we pay attention to it directly. For most of our lives, attention flows outward. We focus on goals. We focus on responsibilities. We focus on relationships, challenges, opportunities, and countless streams of information competing for our awareness. There is nothing inherently wrong with this. External engagement is an essential part of life. Yet when attention is directed outward continuously, something interesting can happen. We become experts at navigating the world while remaining unfamiliar with the observer navigating it. We learn how systems operate. We learn how societies function. We learn how to solve problems and achieve objectives. But we rarely pause long enough to examine the nature of the awareness experiencing all of these things. When that examination begins, a subtle shift occurs. The ordinary starts appearing extraordinary. Take a simple perception, for example. At this very moment, your eyes may be scanning words on a screen. Light enters the eyes. Neural signals travel through complex networks. The brain processes patterns and transforms them into recognizable symbols. Science can describe many aspects of this process. Yet the actual experience of seeing remains remarkable. How does electrical activity become a lived experience? How does information become awareness? How does physical matter produce the feeling of being conscious? These questions remain among the most intriguing in modern inquiry, and the deeper we explore them, the more we realize that consciousness cannot easily be reduced to simple explanations. Awareness is not merely another object in the universe. It is the medium through which the universe becomes knowable. This realization changes how we think about knowledge itself. Every discovery, every theory, every observation, and every breakthrough depends upon consciousness. Before any idea can be understood, it must first appear within awareness. Before any fact can be known, it must first be experienced. Before any question can be asked, awareness must already be present. In this sense, consciousness occupies a unique position. It is both the investigator and the environment in which investigation occurs. Perhaps this is why the mystery remains so compelling. We are attempting to understand the very thing that makes understanding possible. And yet, despite the complexity of the question, awareness often reveals its deepest insights through surprisingly simple experiences. A moment of complete presence, a quiet observation, a sudden realization, a sense of clarity emerging without effort. These moments may appear ordinary on the surface, but they often contain profound lessons. They remind us that awareness is not something distant. It is not hidden behind layers of complexity. It is available in every moment. The challenge is not creating awareness. The challenge is recognizing it. This recognition becomes easier when we begin noticing how much of life unfolds automatically. Consider how often attention becomes absorbed by mental narratives. The mind continuously generates stories, stories about the past, stories about the future, stories about ourselves, stories about other people. Many of these narratives are useful. They help us organize, experience, and make sense of events. Yet they can also become so familiar that we mistake them for reality itself. Awareness allows us to step back. It allows us to observe the story without becoming completely identified with it. This ability is transformative. The moment we recognize that a thought is a thought rather than an absolute truth, new possibilities emerge. The moment we observe an emotion without immediately reacting to it, greater freedom becomes available. The moment we notice a belief rather than unconsciously acting from it, perspective expands. Awareness does not eliminate thoughts, emotions, or beliefs. It changes our relationship with them, and relationships shape experience. Two people may encounter identical circumstances while having completely different experiences because they relate to those circumstances differently. One resists change. Another adapts to it. One sees obstacles. Another sees opportunities. One becomes trapped by fear. Another learns from it. The difference often lies not in external conditions, but in awareness. This is why consciousness may be one of the most powerful influences in human life. It affects how we interpret events. It affects how we respond to challenges. It affects how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. In many ways, awareness acts as the lens through which all experience is filtered. And when the lens changes, experience changes. This principle extends beyond individual moments. Over time, awareness shapes entire life trajectories. The questions we ask influence what we notice. What we notice influences what we learn. What we learn influences how we act. How we act influences the future experiences available to us. Everything is connected through a continuous chain of perception and response. The fascinating part is that awareness allows us to participate consciously in that chain. Rather than being carried entirely by habit, we gain the ability to observe and choose. Choice may be one of the most extraordinary capacities consciousness provides, not because we control every circumstance. Clearly, we do not. Life remains unpredictable. Unexpected events occur. Challenges arise without warning. Uncertainty remains a constant companion. Yet awareness gives us influence over how we meet those experiences. And sometimes that influence changes everything. History is filled with individuals who transformed adversity into growth, uncertainty into discovery, and limitation into innovation. While their circumstances varied, many shared a common quality, the ability to perceive possibilities where others saw only obstacles. Awareness made those possibilities visible. Without awareness, opportunity often remains hidden. With awareness, entirely new futures become imaginable. This may explain why consciousness feels so closely linked to human potential. Potential is not merely about what exists now. It is about what could emerge. It is about unrealized possibilities waiting to become visible. Awareness acts as the bridge between current reality and future possibility. The more conscious we become, the more possibilities we tend to perceive. And the more possibilities we perceive, the more expansive life becomes. Perhaps this is one of the deepest lessons hidden within the mystery of awareness. Consciousness is not simply showing us the world as it is. It is continuously revealing new ways of engaging with that world. New perspectives, new understandings, new possibilities. And as this process unfolds, we may eventually discover that the greatest gift of awareness is not the answers it provides, but the capacity it gives us to keep exploring, to remain curious, present, observant, and open to the extraordinary mystery that continues unfolding through every moment of experience, drawing us ever deeper into questions that challenge our assumptions and invite us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the nature of consciousness, reality, and the limitless potential hidden within the act of being aware. And perhaps it is that limitless potential that has inspired humanity's deepest questions since the beginning of recorded history. Across cultures, generations, and fields of inquiry, people have been drawn toward the same enduring mystery. What is the true nature of the awareness through which life is experienced? The remarkable thing is that despite all of our technological advancements, this question remains just as relevant today as it was centuries ago. We have mapped portions of the brain with extraordinary precision. We have explored the microscopic world of cells and molecules. We have extended our observation far beyond our planet and into the depths of the cosmos. Yet the experience of awareness itself continues to stand apart as one of the most intimate and profound mysteries we can encounter. Every scientific discovery is experienced through consciousness. Every observation occurs within awareness. Every theory is conceived, tested, and understood through the very phenomenon we are attempting to explain. This creates an unusual situation. The deeper we investigate reality, the more we are brought back to the role of the observer. For a long time, many people viewed the observer as separate from the observed. Reality was assumed to exist entirely outside of us, while awareness simply recorded what was already there. Yet human experience suggests a more nuanced picture. Awareness does not merely receive information. It organizes it, interprets it, assigns meaning to it, connects it to memory, projects it into expectations about the future. The world we experience is therefore not simply raw information. It is information shaped by perception, and perception is inseparable from consciousness. This realization can initially feel unsettling. After all, if perception influences experience so deeply, how can we know anything with certainty? But awareness offers an interesting response to this concern. Its purpose may not be to eliminate uncertainty. Its purpose may be to help us engage with uncertainty more intelligently. Life is filled with unknowns. No matter how much knowledge we acquire, there will always be unanswered questions. There will always be situations we cannot fully predict. There will always be mysteries that extend beyond our current understanding. The question is not whether uncertainty exists. The question is how we respond to it. Many people respond by seeking greater control. They attempt to eliminate unpredictability. They search for absolute certainty. Yet awareness often reveals that control and understanding are not the same thing. Sometimes the deepest understanding emerges not through control, but through observation. A scientist observing a phenomenon does not force it into existence. An explorer discovering new territory does not dictate what will be found. In both cases, awareness plays a central role. Observation precedes understanding. The same principle applies internally. The more honestly we observe ourselves, the more clearly we understand the patterns shaping our lives. We notice recurring emotional responses. We recognize habits that once operated unconsciously. We become aware of assumptions guiding perception. This awareness does not instantly solve every challenge. What it does provide is clarity, and clarity has immense value. Many problems persist not because solutions are unavailable, but because the underlying patterns remain unseen. When awareness illuminates those patterns, change becomes possible. This is why genuine self-observation often feels transformative. It reveals aspects of ourselves that were influencing experience without our knowledge. It exposes hidden connections. It uncovers opportunities for growth. Most importantly, it reminds us that awareness itself is dynamic. Consciousness is not frozen, it evolves. A person who develops greater awareness often perceives the world differently than they did years earlier. The same event may carry a different meaning. The same challenge may inspire a different response. The same uncertainty may evoke curiosity rather than fear. What changed was not necessarily the world. What changed was awareness. This observation points toward one of the most powerful insights in the study of consciousness. Growth may involve less changing reality and more changing the way reality is experienced. That idea becomes especially important when we consider the role of attention. Attention determines what enters conscious awareness. At any given moment, countless details surround us. Sounds, sensations, memories, thoughts, visual information. Most of it never reaches conscious focus. Attention selects certain elements while ignoring others. In effect, attention helps construct the experience we call reality. This means that awareness and attention work together continuously. Awareness provides the field. Attention directs the focus. Together, they shape perception. And perception influences nearly every aspect of life. Where attention goes, understanding tends to grow. What remains ignored often remains invisible. This principle extends far beyond external observation. It applies to our inner world as well. The emotions we avoid rarely disappear. The assumptions we never question continue influencing behavior. The beliefs we never examine quietly shape our choices. Awareness brings these hidden influences into view. Once visible, they become available for exploration. This process requires patience. Human consciousness is extraordinarily complex. There are layers of perception, memory, emotion, intuition, reasoning, and imagination interacting continuously. No single explanation can fully capture all of it. And perhaps that is part of what makes awareness so fascinating. The closer we look, the more depth we discover. Every answer reveals additional questions. Every layer exposes another beneath it. Rather than reaching a final conclusion, we encounter an ever-expanding horizon of inquiry. This horizon may be one of the defining characteristics of consciousness itself. Awareness is not merely concerned with what is known. It is drawn toward what remains unknown. Curiosity appears woven into its nature. The desire to understand, the impulse to explore, the longing to discover. These qualities have propelled human progress throughout history. They continue driving exploration today, and they may ultimately lead us toward deeper insights about the nature of consciousness than we can currently imagine. Because if awareness is as fundamental as it appears, then understanding it may transform not only how we view ourselves, but also how we understand reality as a whole. The implications are enormous. Every field of knowledge depends upon consciousness. Every experience unfolds within awareness. Every moment of life is illuminated by its presence. And as we continue investigating this extraordinary mystery, one possibility becomes increasingly compelling: that awareness is not merely a feature of human existence, but a doorway into a deeper understanding of existence itself. A doorway that invites us beyond familiar assumptions and into an ever-expanding exploration of perception, identity, meaning, and the profound questions that arise whenever consciousness turns its attention toward the mystery of its own nature.
One of the most fascinating ideas explored in this discussion is the distinction between awareness and the contents of awareness. At first, this may sound abstract, but it becomes much easier to understand when we use a simple example. Imagine you are sitting beside a river. Leaves float by on the surface of the water. Some move quickly, some slowly, some catch your attention, while others pass unnoticed. In this analogy, the leaves represent your thoughts, emotions, memories, and experiences. Most people spend their lives chasing the leaves. They become attached to certain thoughts, fearful of certain emotions, and completely absorbed by whatever appears on the surface. But awareness is not the leaves. Awareness is the riverbank from which you observe them. This simple distinction changes everything. Modern neuroscience has shown that the brain generates thousands of thoughts every day. Many of these thoughts are repetitive. Some are helpful, others are not. Yet most people automatically assume that every thought deserves attention simply because it appeared in the mind. The problem is that thoughts are not always accurate reflections of reality. They are interpretations. They are mental models created by the brain to help us navigate the world. Think about how often you have worried about something that never actually happened. The thought felt real. The emotional reaction felt real. The stress in your body felt real. Yet the event itself never occurred. This reveals something important. The body often responds, not just to reality, but to our perception of reality. Scientists studying the mind-body connection have discovered that emotions trigger measurable biological changes. When you feel stressed, your body releases hormones that prepare you for action. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, muscles become tense. This response is incredibly useful when facing a genuine threat. However, the same biological reaction can occur when the threat exists only in your imagination. This is why chronic stress can become so powerful. The body listens closely to the messages being sent by the mind. A useful way to understand this is to think of the body as an incredibly sophisticated instrument. Every thought and emotion acts like a signal being transmitted through that instrument. Over time, repeated emotional patterns influence how the entire system functions. This does not mean we can simply think positively and solve every problem. Life is more complex than that. Challenges are real, difficult emotions are real, pain is real. The deeper lesson is that awareness gives us the ability to notice what is happening internally before we automatically react. Imagine driving a car. If you never look at the dashboard, you may miss important signals. The warning lights are not the problem. They are information. Emotions work in a similar way. Fear may be telling you something requires attention. Frustration may reveal a conflict between expectations and reality. Sadness may signal the need for healing or reflection. Awareness allows us to observe these signals without immediately becoming controlled by them. This is where the concept of perspective becomes incredibly important. Two people can experience the same event and walk away with completely different conclusions. One person sees failure, another sees a lesson, one sees rejection, another sees redirection. The event is identical. The interpretation is different. This highlights one of the most powerful ideas in human psychology. Experience is shaped not only by what happens to us, but also by how we interpret what happens. This principle appears throughout modern cognitive science. Researchers have found that our beliefs strongly influence perception. The brain constantly filters information, deciding what deserves attention and what does not. Think of buying a new car. Suddenly, you start noticing that same model everywhere. The cars were always there. Your attention simply changed. Life works the same way. If we constantly focus on problems, we become highly skilled at finding problems. If we focus on opportunities, we become more likely to recognize possibilities. Awareness acts like a spotlight. Whatever it illuminates becomes more visible. This leads to an important practical question. How can we develop greater awareness in daily life? The first practice is simple observation. Spend a few minutes each day noticing your thoughts without trying to change them. Imagine sitting on the riverbank watching leaves float by. Instead of following every thought, simply observe it. You may notice worries. You may notice plans. You may notice old memories resurfacing. The goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to recognize that you are the observer of thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. A second practice involves conscious breathing. Many people underestimate the power of breath because it seems too simple. Yet breathing acts as a bridge between mind and body. When you slow your breathing, you send signals throughout the nervous system that encourage calm and stability. Try this. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold briefly, and exhale for 6 seconds. Repeat several times. Notice what happens. The mind may still be active, but the body often begins to settle. This creates space for clearer awareness. A third practice involves curiosity. Most people approach challenges by asking, why is this happening to me? A more useful question is often, what can this teach me? That single shift changes perception. Curiosity transforms obstacles into opportunities for learning. It opens the door to growth. One of the deepest lessons from the exploration of awareness is that consciousness appears to expand through observation rather than force. We live in a culture that constantly encourages more effort, more achievement, and more activity. Yet some of the most important insights emerge when we pause long enough to observe. A calm lake reflects the sky more clearly than turbulent water. Likewise, a calm mind often perceives reality more clearly than a distracted one. This does not mean withdrawing from life, it means engaging with life more consciously. Ultimately, the mystery of awareness invites us to recognize something extraordinary. Beneath every thought, every emotion, every success, and every challenge exists the simple fact that we are aware. That awareness has accompanied us through every stage of life. It was present in childhood. It is present now. and it remains the silent observer of every experience. The more we learn to connect with that deeper level of awareness, the more freedom, clarity, resilience, and wisdom become available. We begin to realize that personal growth is not always about becoming someone new. Often, it is about becoming more aware of who we have been all along.